Well, I think Bill Dozier, our late executive producer of Batman, in watching that commercial, discovered a young boy, Adam West, who had a sense of humor and had a little wit and knew how to use props and make them funny, and maybe a tongue-in-cheek aspect that worked for Batman, because Batman was a comedy. You know, it was a fantasy adventure for the kids, but pretty much a comedy for the older folks.
How the screen test came about is that I was selling real estate on the weekends for my father to help, make some money, because I was living by myself at the beach, and I only sold a couple of houses during this whole summer, but one of them was to Saul David, who was the producer of the Our Man Flint pictures and the Skullduggery and some great movies he produced. And he was kind enough to watch a scene that I did, and he sent me to an agent. And the agent, when I went to the agent said, look, I can't get hardly any of my actors work, so don't expect to get a job for at least a year, and if you do, it's going to be a walk-on part, and the only reason I'm taking you is because Saul David asked me to do it, and out of courtesy, I'm doing it. And I said, well, okay, thanks. The first thing I tried out for was a part of Robin.
The great Lorenzo Semple Jr., the writer of our first Batman pilot or script, is an enormously talented writer. He's won many awards, New York Film Critics and so on, written big features, and he decided that he had a take on Batman. And Bill Dozier and he were pretty much married, in agreement about it. And they called me in and told me, and I understood immediately what this thing was going to be. And I read Lorenzo's script, and I just fell down laughing. And I thought, yeah, that's the kind of comedy I'd like to try. Something absurd and something that might have some appeal and last a while.
I did the screen test with Adam West. And there was another young man and Lyle Wagner who also were doing a screen test. And it just it's one of these things, instead of being knocked around the business for years, I just, maybe because I just had this wonderful opportunity, and I hadn't been emotionally damaged as so many actors are, so I just went for it, It's like I just threw myself into it completely. And even today when I look back, and it's on the internet, you can see my screen test, it was really good. I mean, because I wasn't, quote, acting. In other words, I just totally, I memorized the lines, and I just was totally into the dialogue and into the character. But that was the character of Dick Grayson. You see, I didn't really understand what I was trying out for. In other words, nobody told me this was about a comic book character named Batman and Robin.
Like, I suppose, many actors, I've heard Johnny Depp with the Pirates movies and so on, you have to win people over. So they'll have confidence in what you're doing and see what you're doing and think, well, maybe that guy has the right idea. And this is what happened to me. They wanted it very straight and Lone Ranger kind of thing and nothing behind the mask. I couldn't do that. I felt that Batman is a very interesting character. But even comedically, as the bright knight and not the dark knight, you had to have fun with it. And not think you were funny, of course, and wink at the camera, but have fun with it. And be so absurd in your seriousness, and yet have some lust going behind the mask for whatever.
But the other part of the screen test, which I didn't explain to you, is they said, okay, Burt, that's really good, and show us some action stuff, because I was a black belt in karate. I could do things really good, and broke a board with my hand. But they said, now we have one last thing for you to do. We want you to meet our wardrobe guys over at your dressing room. I said, meet them? Okay, I'll go meet them. Maybe just say hello. I didn't know what he meant by meeting them. So I'm there, and these two guys saying, here, take off your clothes. Well, why am I taking off my clothes? Well, we have this to put on you. oh, well, I can't put it on by myself. Well, you're going to need help to get into this. I said, well, what is it? And they had all this stuff. And it's like, gosh, what is this? And these tights, I'm telling you, I used to call them my python pants because they nearly strangle you to death. And, I mean, man was not built for tights, let me tell you. Okay, so, and they get me dressed in this thing. It's the most uncomfortable thing I think I've ever been in my entire life. Most uncomfortable. And they said, okay, now we want you to go out and do your lines and stuff. And I said, okay. And so I'm walking like, oh, it's so stiff. And the director said, no, you can't do that. You got to look natural. It's got to be. I said, how do you be natural in this contraption? You know what I mean? It's like every step I took, it pulled hair on my leg. I mean, just really not a great costume. But I overlooked it and I did my stuff. And 6 weeks went by. I heard nothing. I said, gee, that's a long time. Well, I guess I didn't get it. What had happened was I finally got a call from my agent who said, come in and sign contracts. And I thought that was the agency contracts because I'd never signed anything. So when I got in there, it said 20th Century Fox on them. I said, well, wait a minute, your agency's not named 20th Century Fox. No, this is the studio contracts. You got the part. I said, I got the part. He said, well, you didn't, I said, no. He said, well, you've had it for 6 weeks. We thought the studio told you that you had the part. And apparently the studio thought my agents, nobody told me.
I was a little timorous about that, a little taken aback with what might occur in that costume when I walked on the set for the first time. And so I opened the door of my trailer on the stage. I saw the lighting, and everything was quite dark except for a brilliant setup where I was going to work for the first time, the first scene. And I decided I'd walk through pools of light to get to that spot in the costume as much like Batman as I could. And you know what the hell happened? I got over there and there wasn't a sound. Everyone believed that I was Batman. And I think that comes from that wonderful baggage that I had with the character, because Batman had been read, loved, and like #1 favorite in the comics for years. And Batman had been seen on the screen in the old movie serials in black and white. So there was kind of an aura, a sense of Batman in the air, and all I had to do was play it. What I tried to bring was something fresh and something people had never seen as a dimension of Batman. And the only way I could understand to do it was to make it fun for, the entire family spectrum, to make it funny and ludicrous, absurd in a sense, but always kind of believable. There's a fine line, I'm not going to tell you my secrets.
So when I finally, after signing, and then I went in to actually see the producers again, they said, Burt, we had 1,100 young guys that we interviewed for this role, 1,100. And the reason we picked you was because in our mind, you, Burt Ward, is exactly what Robin would be like if he were real. So we don't want you to do any acting, per se. We want you to be yourself and be enthusiastic, and that's all we want. And that's exactly what I did. So I was myself. So the things that the character did, I just made them mine. And Adam was such a pleasure to work with. And it's so funny because he and I are exact opposites. He's big and I'm small, certainly in relation to him. And, he's very debonair and, coffee or tea at 4 p.m. and very grand. And I'm like this kid, I've always been very kid-like. So when you put Adam and I together, immediately, we don't have to say anything. People start laughing because there is this, and I love Adam. He is just the nicest guy in the world. We got to be great friends, unlike so many other actors on shows. We were great friends. Occasionally, even on the weekends, after working together all day for 14 hours a day, we'd go out and play tennis or something on a weekend. And I remember one time we were out playing tennis and people came onto the adjoining court and they said, "Oh my God, it's Batman and Robin playing tennis!" Well, you see, in Adam's book, you know, he describes the feeling of what it was like to wear the costume, and he compares his success to that of Mickey Mouse, of Winston Churchill, and then the one that really got me was when he said, you know, he said, I really understood what it was like to play Batman. You know, when I put the cowl on and I watched Charlton Heston play Moses. And in my book, I said, you know, Moses parted the Red Sea. The closest Adam West ever came to that was parting some redhead's legs. But we love each other, and yet we play with each other, you know, psychologically, and we have a lot of fun. But I do love Adam.
Well, it was kind of chaos the first week or so of shooting, in that Burt kept getting in the way of bombs and speeding cars and birds that were dropping, and terrible thing. But it was a little, I guess, risky. We took some chances in the first week or so and continued to until we got acquainted with what they were doing as far as the action and the explosives. Because in those days, we didn't have enhancement with computers, green screen, anything. We just had to go out and do it. So poor Burt evidently was blown through a wall or two with a little heavier charge than was supposed to have been there. I don't know.
Batman was a really dangerous show, and I am not accident prone. I am extremely athletic, and I've never even been in a hospital in my life except for an emergency hospital, and that was due to Batman. But I've always been very healthy, but it was a really dangerous show, and you know it's dangerous when the first 4 of the first 5 days of filming, you end up going to the emergency hospital every day with some significant injury. Let's start with the first day with the first shot. We're at Bronson Canyon, and this is a scene where the Batmobile comes out of the Batcave. It's an exterior shot, so they shot it up in the Hollywood Hills, Bronson Canyon. And I was there 7:30 in the morning, makeup and wardrobe and all of this. And I think it was probably about 8:30. They called me to the set, and there's the Batmobile, and it's inside this cave, you know? So I get in the Batmobile on my side, which is the right side, and I look over to say hi to Adam, and I notice it's not Adam. So I said, oh, you're not Adam. He says, no. He says, I'm Hubie. I said, oh, well, hi, what happened to Adam? Well, I'm Adam's stuntman. I said, oh, really? So he's not doing the shot? Oh, no, he's not doing the shot. I said, well, why are you doing the shot? He said, because it's dangerous. He says, I'm hired to do things that are dangerous. You know, if I get a couple of broken bones, it's okay. You know, I get more money. He says, but you can't have the star get hurt. I said, oh, great. I said, well, you know, what am I doing in here? If this is so dangerous that they're using a stuntman to play Adam, why are they using me? Don't I have a stuntman? He said, yes, you do. Oh, I said, great. Where is he? I asked. And he said, oh, he's over there having coffee with Adam West. I see. Well, maybe he should come over here. And so I said, wait a minute, because they're getting ready now. It's like, you know, they're putting the steam on, and so it's like the Batmobile is going to have all the steam coming out. I mean, they're getting ready to shoot this shot. I said, excuse me, wait a minute. Could I see the assistant director, please? So the assistant director comes over, second assistant director, Ruben, comes over, and I said, Ruben, you know, I'm here doing the shot, but they've got a stuntman for Adam. He said, yeah, it's a dangerous shot. I said, but why don't I have a stuntman? He says, you do. He's over there having coffee with Adam. What? No. Why isn't he doing the shot? Because he doesn't look like you, Burt. I said, wait a minute. Why would you hire a stuntman that doesn't look like me? Well, sorry, we don't know, but he does got a very big nose. He doesn't look like you. I said, okay, all right. So anyway, this guy Hubie says, now look, we're going to come out at 55 miles an hour. We're going straight at the camera. At the last moment, I'm going to make a sharp left turn. You really got to brace yourself. There's going to be a lot of centrifugal force. Oh, okay, all right. You know, Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. I mean, and there's no getting out of it now. That's it. I mean, you're down to where they're getting ready to roll. So what happens? They shoot the shot. We come out right up at the camera. We make that turn. The stuntman did it perfectly, but unexpectedly, my door flew open. At 55 miles an hour, when you make a sharp turn, my door flew open, knocked the camera over, and the cameraman sitting there, at the camera, knocked lights over, and I was thrown. As I'm thrown out, I reach around, and just a freaky thing, I caught the gear shift knob with my pinky finger and just wrapped it around it, pulled my finger right out of the socket because of this force, okay, and just excruciating pain, okay, and it took them like a half an hour to set up the thing, and I told them that I was hurt. They could see my hand was all swollen. They said, look, Burt, we will get you right over to the emergency hospital. They can reset your finger, not a problem. We'll do it as soon as we finish the shot. I said, what do you mean? I'm not going now? No, we got to go back and shoot the shot. We got a whole crew. We got 80 guys in a crew here. Oh my gosh, all right. Well, it was like 4 more takes and we got it right. So I go to the hospital. I meet this guy. Doctor says, geez, that's got to be painful. Yeah, it's very painful, And the thing is because I had to go back and film, I didn't get dressed in my regular clothes. I just basically took off my cape and vest, and here I'm in a green shirt and tights with my little green booties, And, the doctor's kind of looking at me like, who is this guy? A little strange here. So anyway, that was the first day. The second day, we're shooting outside again. This time, I'm in the Riddler's car. This is the first show with Frank Gorshin and Jill St. John, who played the character of Moll. And the car is supposed to be burning. So what happens? I'm down in the bottom of the car, inside. Frank Gorshin's above me. He's supposed to climb out and jump. And then I climb out afterwards and jump down. Well, he came up. I mean, it's a very claustrophobic thing. Your car is burning all around you. You're underneath somebody. There's no exit except straight up, and that person, is not moving as fast as you'd like them to, right? So anyway, Frank climbs up, jumps out, everything's fine. And I climb up, and as I get to the top, and just to get into position, the car unexpectedly blows up. I'm thrown to the ground. Thank goodness I had the cape on, but still there was a little bit of space between the back of my hair and the cape. 2nd-degree burns on my neck, all right? And I mean, I hit the ground hard. It's like, and I'm kind of dazed, all right? And they said, geez, Burt, nobody knew the car would blow up. They told me that on the way to the hospital, because I had 2nd-degree burns in my arms because, I have the gloves, but then I have the T-shirt, so there's open skin, 2nd-degree burns on the arms. That was the second day, and it goes on and on and on. The third day was when they had a huge set. They said, Burt, this is a one-time shot. This is where the Riddler shoots you with a dart, and you're knocked out. He runs around. He presses what he thinks is the starter button on the Batmobile, and all these fireworks go off. Whatever you do, Burt, do not move. Do not move. You can't. This is a one-shot thing. We've got the big set at 20th Century. This is a wide shot. You cannot move. Okay, I won't move. So I did the thing where I got shot with a dart and I fell down. And then when he pressed the button, the fireworks going off. These fireworks are shooting off and they're coming down and landing and burning through my cape. They burnt right through my cape onto my shoulders and burned right through the gloves onto my arms. I mean, I have 2nd-degree burns on my arms again, okay? Burned right onto my crotch. And let me tell you, that's painful, okay? So back to the hospital again. These are, and this is the first 3 days. The 4th day, I'm supposedly, I've been captured. This is after I was shot with a dart. I'm now captured by the Riddler. I'm on this table in a subway, and Batman figures out where I am, and he's supposed to break through this wall, through a breakaway wall, you know what I mean, with a charge, which is more, it's a magnesium. It's still hot, but it's not, big charge. He's supposed to break away, come in and rescue me, right? Okay. Well, we go to shoot the scene, and as I do say, it's always a bad sign when you smell liquor on the breath of the special effects guy. Okay, these guys that are setting dynamite charges, you do not want to smell liquor on their breath at 8 o'clock in the morning. Bad sign. So what happened was they forgot to build a breakaway wall. In other words, we did the scene, the charge went off, There was a little bit of motion on the wall, but nothing. It didn't blow apart. They didn't have all the balsa wood and all the stuff. They had forgotten. They built a real wall. Now you got a crew of 80 guys. You got a tight time schedule. There's no time to rebuild this set for 2 weeks and make breakaway walls. So in their infinite wisdom, the producers decided to use 2 half sticks of dynamite. Real dynamite. They nearly blew the entire soundstage down. I'm tied down with my hands like this. There's nothing to protect my face, and I have 2x4s landing on my head. Broke my nose. Boom. Back to the hospital again. So I got to, and the doctor was a really cool doctor. He says, gosh, he says, you know, you're coming in every day. We got to give you some kind of discount.
I think Burt was a surprisingly good actor, even though that was his first kind of professional gig. But because he came in with so much enthusiasm and energy and that childlike quality, he was just right. And Burt had a way of listening, which is terribly important to an actor. And I think, in a sense, I was able, because I'd done quite a bit of work, to, give Burt a few pointers as we went along. And Burt is a quick learner. I mean, he really picked up on stuff quickly, and he understood that comedic relationship between Batman and Robin. He just got it. Well, I did occasionally kid Burt, tease him a bit by holding up a cape in front of his face in front of a take, but only if he misunderstood something. If he was doing something he shouldn't do, as my sidekick. Okay, take 2, and it would come down.
I'll give you an idea how big Batman was. At the time, and back in 1966, there was really only 2 networks. There was CBS and NBC. ABC was a syndicated network. It wasn't considered a national broadcast network. Between Batman and Bewitched, we made ABC the 3rd network. That's how big. Let's just talk about the first night of airing. When we came on it was Tuesday night, January 12th, 1966, 7:30 at night. When we came on, there'd been a lot of promotion and stuff. And I watched the show for the first time, which, by the way, when you're shooting something, you really don't get to see it all assembled together. And I certainly wasn't even aware of the pows and zaps and the great graphics. And I really loved it. I was so impressed. But the next day when I went into work, they told me that we had a 55 share. I said, well, what does 55 share mean? They said, based on the Nielsen's, of all the televisions that were turned on in the United States, 55% were watching Batman. And all the other local and the other two networks was only 45%. That's really huge. That is really huge. And we became number 1 and number 2 in the whole country. And we were in 106 countries around the world. Batman became a huge success.
Frank Gorshin, the late Frank Gorshin, was an amazing actor. He was always on the manic, dangerous edge, which I love. And I could relate to that. And so Frank and I got along well, and we loved to play the scenes together as those quite disparate characters. And Frank always made me laugh, and I made him laugh. So what more can you ask for? When on camera, is that a camera? We're on camera? Oh, it turned out quite well. We had so many really professional, well-schooled, brilliant raconteurs and actors on the show. Burgess Meredith, Cesar Romero, all those people that I felt privileged to be working with them. And really, I learned a great deal from standing there toe-to-toe with these people. Because if you got to do all your acting behind a mask, you got to do a lot maybe with your chin or something in your mouth. I don't know, but you really kind of absorb things from these great people.
I love working with all of the actors. I mean, I was like a kid in the candy store. These were everyone I had watched on television or seen in movies, and each one, to meet them in person and be doing a scene with them, It was really cool, you know. And I was never an actor that was like, you know, thought of themselves as very important or anything. Maybe because it was easy for me to get the role, that, you know, I just took it for what it was. But there were great actors and stuff. I mean, and some of these people, when I was a little kid, 5 and 6 years old, I'd seen on television, like Tallulah Bankhead, who played Black Widow, and it was George Raft, who was the famous, you know, bad guy and stuff like, and yet Cesar Romero, you know, Frank Gorshin, Burgess Meredith, there's, you know, Joan Collins, so many great actors and actresses, and every one was very professional. I learned a lot from them. The only one that I didn't feel, you know, real comfortable working with was Eartha Kitt, that had played Catwoman. I don't know. Maybe she was just having a bad day the days that I saw her, but she just seemed like not a happy person, whereas everybody who was doing Batman was like, oh, wow, you know, this is so much fun. And it gave these actors a chance to do some really zany things that they would otherwise never do in their normal acting. In the case of Otto Preminger, you know, he had a reputation of being a really tough guy. You know what I mean? I mean, most actors feared him because he was just like, you know, and I'd heard all this stuff about him. And yet he was very nice to me, you know? And something about doing our show, it took all these wonderful actors, tremendous experience and success in their own lives, and somehow it brought them into this other world that they got to experience for, you know, a week when they filmed the show. And they all seemed to just thrive on this opportunity to not be limited in what they were doing. In other words, they could make their characters bigger than life.
Eartha was our first black Catwoman, and I thought she was remarkable. And she'd been around for a while, and she certainly knew what she was doing. You know, she wasn't just a singer, a cafe, you know, entertainer. She was a fine actress. She started, I think, with Orson Welles in Paris. And no, we got along quite well. And I thought she was really good. You know, but there were 3 Catwomen, or Catwomans, and this kept me very busy. 27 lives, I think. Tough. Isn't that interesting that Julie, I think, and Leanne saw the same thing, that Catwoman was playful. She was a tease, but she wasn't basically psychopath evil. You might think so, but she wasn't really. And she promised to date me when she gets out of jail. Yeah, for good behavior, and that'll be good. As you know, she gave me I can't say this. She gave me curious stirrings in my utility belt. Did I do that right? It's been a while.
Well, Julie Newmar is a delightful person and a fun, wild kind of lady that it was always a pleasure to work with her, and she threw herself into the character. I mean, and she found depth in the character, and I mean, she really thought things through, and it was really wonderful to work with her. Although I must tell you, some of the shows I did with her were some of the most dangerous shows I had ever done. There was this one scene where in one of the shows that she hangs me, I'm tied up, and I'm kind of hanging over a cage with 3 live Bengal tigers, the real kind. Now they can jump supposedly 15 to 18 feet. And I was only 12 feet above them. And it's kind of interesting, if you can imagine looking down and you have this circular cage with 3, and these are not tame, these are wild animals, okay? Bengal tigers. And I'm there, hung over kind of like a teeter-totter board, right? Being, you know, about to slide into them. And 5 feet above me is a steel cage that the camera guys are in to protect them. You know, it's like a shark cage, right? So the director and the camera guy, and they're 5 feet above me in a steel cage, and they're filming this down, and the cats seeing me there are circling, and the director says, wait a minute, we got to get more action out of these cats. I said, well, what do you have in mind? I said, I'm tied down here. I really, please don't do anything dangerous. So he calls over one of the handlers of the cats, and they try to do some tapping to get the cats more looking up at me. And they looked up, but it didn't do what the director, he said, I need more, I need more. They hung meat over my head, and these tigers were jumping up at my face while trying to get the meat, okay? And they said to me afterward, Burt, you look terrified. I said, yeah, I was terrified. What do you mean? They're huge claws. They're like, a foot away from my face. It was a very scary show to do. I like working with all of them. Honestly, I don't think I had one favorite. I learned something from every one. Cesar Romero was like the ultimate slick professional, always on time, knew his lines. If he had to do a scene 20 times, he could do it and would be just as fresh and innovative the 20th time as it was the first time. I was very, very impressed. And I was very impressed with Adam. Adam was like a mentor to me, and it's so funny because he could do things and not get in trouble. That if I did something similar, I'd get in a lot of trouble. like once in a while, we'd jump in the Batmobile and he'd kind of skid off and maybe graze the set or something coming out of the Batcave. Because the very first day we were actually in a cave. I had explained in Bronson Canyon, but when we're on set on stage 16, that's inside a soundstage, but we kind of would drive out of the set as appearing to be going through the canyon. But like one time I was supposed to drive out and I just stopped a little bit and just dinged this one little thing, and oh boy did I get in trouble. And it's like I said to him, I said, how is it that everything you do, everybody loves, and anything I do wrong, I'm a bad kid? And he's, well, yeah, you just got to know when to do it and when not to do it, and you got to know how far to stretch the elastic.
Well, I'd mentioned before, I think, Frank Gorshin several times, who played Riddler, and Burgess Meredith, who was the Penguin. And they were always fun because they were knowledgeable, and I just kind of like to go out and tip a few glasses with them and listen to their stories. You got laughs. Burgess, was a very experienced theater pro, and I learned a lot from Burgess. You go into a discotheque, right, as Batman, and you assume that no one, of course, will recognize you, and you say things like, check your cape, Batman. No, I shouldn't wish to be conspicuous. And, things like that. And then you're slipped a Mickey or some kind of potion in your orange juice at the bar, and you suddenly have complete abandonment, and you can do anything you want as Batman, and really get goofy and do the Batusi, that I invented on the way to the studio. I think, those are wonderful comedic moments. It was easy to play Batman. Oh my God, all I had to do was a sense memory of playing Batman as a kid. So the moment I pulled on that cowl, it was like, in my head, it was like, hey, you want to go out and play Batman? Let's go, come on, I want to be Batman, That's a profound question in a way for an actor, because do you use the costume? Do you use all the accoutrements? Do you use other things, makeup, etc., or do you use what's inside and so on, and your take on things? Well, I studied with, Actors Studio and all that stuff, and I think that the costume did help enormously, because you can use that. It's an obstacle, and yet it's very helpful. In the way you move. For example, if I couldn't move my head easily in that cowl and the way the cape was attached, then I'd use that. Remember how Cary Grant moved? Kind of, yeah. In other words, I couldn't turn my head like this, so I use that. You use these things. Or you trip on the cape, you use that in a way. So you're right. I mean, the costuming, those exterior things help, but you better bring the interior stuff in, or you're dead. The cowl, I'm a little nearsighted anyway, as you can tell. I don't have any vanity about glasses, but being nearsighted and being behind those holes in the cowl, it made it doubly hard to see. And I was very fortunate in that I grew up in kind of an athletic way. And so I was able to adjust to that. As a matter of fact, even that helped me in the character. It made Batman a little different in certain ways. When he was examining something, you'll have to watch. How can I talk about acting? This is ridiculous. You know, it's very difficult for an actor to talk about acting because we have our secrets. And I feel kind of goofy revealing them. But I will tell you about a few things. Now, you ask about the costume and so on, and movement. Yeah, that really helped. Because what you do, if you really, I think, are a good actor, you use any nuance, any little zephyr of air, whatever's around you, with your character. Because things happen in the real world. Things happen to you on a set with other people, and you listen. It's that easy. Simple. I got the easiest job in the world.
Well, I have a very definite belief as to why the show was canceled. Batman was a very expensive show to make. As I understood it, the producers were losing $200,000 to $300,000 a week making the show. That's a lot of money in 1966, 67, and 68. And we had a unit production manager. And the unit production manager, you know, they handle the finances. They're supposed to, you know, arrange for this to be done and get the best price and all this stuff. But he wanted to be a director. And he went to the producers and said, if you let me direct these shows, I promise you, I guarantee you, I will bring them in on budget. And they gave him a chance, and he did just that. But there was a tremendous cost to it. The cost was it didn't have the heart. The jokes weren't funny, and although he laughed at them. And it cheapened the show so much that to the audience, in my opinion, because I would go out and make personal appearances and I'd hear it, say, gee, Burt, you know, gosh, those first 2 years, it was so great, the things and this and the funny lines and the moments and this and that, and it all became cookie cutter stuff that wasn't funny anymore. And I complained about that, okay? Ultimately, because of my complaint, the now director from second unit production manager became very embittered towards me, and for the next 30 years went around saying bad things about me, which actually kept me from some work. But I loved the show. I only wanted the best for the show, okay? And so did Adam. And it was really sad because it wouldn't have had to end then. I mean, it doesn't mean that it would have gone on forever, of course, but it ended early because it was all about money and bringing things in on budget, on time, even if the payoffs weren't as good and it just wasn't the level of quality that we originally started with.
Canceled?
Yeah.
Canceled? I've never been canceled. Yes, it was canceled because, number one, we had enough episodes, enough product, as they say, to go into reruns. And at that time, it was the most expensive show ever done. And they decided they'd just wrap the show, go into reruns, and make the money back. And the audiences had begun to fall off a bit. I mean, you know, when you're way up at the top, it's going to go down a little bit, isn't it? You can't go further up.
Would you like to stay on longer?
No, I had it, pretty much, because I sensed, too, that we'd done enough of it. And, I mean, I was pretty much played out, you know, eating the same lunch every day. And also, I think the writers were beginning to try a little too hard. And when the money dried up and we couldn't get some of the elements of production that we really wanted and needed, and the show became a little cheapened, I didn't miss it.
First of all, it was the greatest opportunity in the world. I wouldn't have changed a thing. And I have no resentment at all, none. It is interesting that there were some, you win some and you lose some. During the second season, during the hiatus, because the first season we shot the Batman movie, but then the second season there was a hiatus, and I was up for a film at 20th Century Fox. So I thought because it was the same studio, right, that I'd have a much better chance, because if it was another studio, I'm sure the studio wouldn't have let me, work for a competing studio. But this was a small film, and the producer was named Larry Terman, and he wanted me for this role, and I thought I had the role. Everything is all set, and the last minute the studio said, no, I'm sorry, you can't use Burt. And the reason we don't want it, not that he wouldn't be great for the role, but we got a #1 show on television. We don't want to do anything to dilute the imagery of that or the success of that show. We don't want him playing another character, so you're going to have to hire somebody else. And I felt really bad, but it was a small film. And by the way, the name of the film was The Graduate. So when they didn't get me, they got Dustin Hoffman. Became somewhat of a successful film, okay? But nevertheless, that's something that happened, and so what? I mean, you win some, you lose some.
I never imagined that I would get to the point that you described. Certainly I had ambitions, but I was more concerned with, I think, just one step at a time. Just trying to get roles that were interesting and that I felt I could be creative playing and bring something fresh to. But again, I say that I was fortunate because somehow my timing was such with those commercials, with whatever I did, that they saw them and they said, "Kid, I think you can play Batman." And they called me in and I was able to do it the way I wanted. I mean, but I never had a sense of it being, how can I say, something permanent, something as lasting as it's been. But I do know one thing about myself, and I think maybe you've been told by other performers who were there, that may have thought there was a little conceit in this. But I remember very well communicating with certain people. You do the very best you've ever done in your life at this moment, because this show will be a classic. It will go on forever. So you do the best work you've ever done in your life. This is your career right now, this moment, this show. And then you make it funny and fun. But I really felt that, only that, but not that certainly our show would go on and do the things you talk about.